Okay, I'm gonna have to apologise. Before I start, I just straight up, sorry, I was like, before I start, let's start again. Before I start, I've had to shut all the windows because, well, firstly, I don't want the neighbours hearing me talk, so they probably think I'm talking to myself and they'll just think I'm weird. Secondly, well, they already think I'm weird, but anyway. Secondly, there's probably going to be noise because every time I film, there's always noise. So I thought shutting it would help, but currently it's really hot, so I'm not going to try and rush this. And I don't know why, but I made myself a cup of tea and I'm like, why? Because it's actually boiling, I'm sweating. So now this video is going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be about what I would like to see more of from books. So I know a lot of the times I talk about unpopular opinions or hot takes or what I hate about books sometimes or what I don't like. This is more talking about what I'd like to see more of in the books that I read, in writing in general. I thought, let's have a bit of a chat about it. My first thing I really want to talk about and what I would love to see more in books is really good dialogue. What do I mean by that? That's a bit vague. What I mean is it doesn't actually have to be perfect. In fact, that's kind of the point I'm making. It's almost like I want flawed, actually scrap that. I want flawed dialogue. I want interrupting. I want stuttering. I don't know, because I just feel like when you have conversations with people in real life, that's what you do. You don't mean to, like sometimes you just do. You interrupt each other, you stutter, you go, oh, what was I going to say? You know, you do all that, and that's just normal conversation normally. Like I said, you don't mean to do it, it just happens. And that's how kind of humans talk to each other. Now, a lot of the times I find in books, and, you know, not even books, like even visual media, like, you know, TV, movie, all that kind of thing, it happens a lot where like the only time the author will show that they're stuttering or they're interrupting or whatever is if they're anxious, nervous, frightened, you know, all those things. And they'll do that by showing that they're stuttering, and, you know, obviously that's fine and we get it, but like I just like to see more kind of flawed dialogue. You just don't get that a lot, you know. A lot of the times characters almost speak quite eloquently and that just wouldn't happen. And I kind of get why an author might skip that because it's just a bit clunky sometimes. And I'm not saying it has to happen in every single interaction. It would just be nice sometimes. I don't know, to me it really fleshes it out a bit more. It just makes it seem more realistic. And if you know me by now, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I like a somewhat realistic type book. I just think I would just like to see more flawed dialogue, and that sounds really weird. And I'm fed up as well, and you know, I read a few romance here and there, and I am fed up of reading really cliched stuff now. It's getting really old. And I've noticed lately in a lot of romance books, or even just books, like, it doesn't matter the genre, I've noticed that a lot of the times in these type of books, the characters will often go, oh, I don't want to be cliche, or I don't want to say something cliche. And it does make me laugh because it's like the author's telling on themselves. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather them say that than them be cliche. So yeah, it is what it is. So another thing that I think I would really like to see in my books is publishers, authors taking the actual look of their book more seriously. And okay, I really did explain that very well. What I mean is, I'm not a big book series kind of girly, but when you do have a book series, I've noticed, I've never had this, but I know a lot of people, I see it on like social media, they complain about it because sometimes they're different heights, or sometimes they just look completely, they don't quite look right, you know, they don't match with each other, and, you know, they're not supposed to be the same, but they're meant to be somewhat consistent, you know, and not put in a book number on the series. Does that make sense? But okay, say for example Twilight and New Moon. Oh god, I brought up Twilight again. I can't think of any book series example, and I'm not using the boy wizard ones over there. So Twilight is the first one. I think it should have a number one. It doesn't have to be like smack bang in the middle of the book, but it definitely needs to be on the binding bit. What do you call it? Is that the bit? The binding bit. I would just like to see like publishers take it a bit more seriously. And I know that sounds maybe a bit snobby or a bit uppity of me, but a bit Karen-y. But I'm like, the thing is, we do spend a lot of money on books usually, and I just think, if, you know, at least make an effort, at least show some kind of, I want to say loyalty, but that's not the right word, but, you know, just some kind of effort, I suppose. I guess that is it. I would like to see more effort on behalf of the authors and publishers. I don't always think it maybe is the author's fault, but you know, a publisher will just do what markets wow, and I get that, but I'm just a bit, you know, I'm just fed up of I feel like they don't sometimes take it, not all books, by the way, I mean, you know, not all books, but some. And I just think it would be nice if we could I want to see that more. I want to see more of an effort with book series and books in general, to be honest. I would also, sort of following on from that, I would also like to see some illustrations in books. Now, I don't want it on every single page, I don't need that, but I do kind of miss illustrations in books. And like, I know in children's books, obviously that's almost a given, and so is Sometimes you get it a little bit in YA, but adult books, no. And I really kind of want illustrations. And like I said, I don't want it on every page, but just like a little illustration here and there. Like, it doesn't even have to be of the characters, or it doesn't even have to be anything that, like, I'm not expecting like maps or, you know, anything like that, but just something. I just think it's, I don't know, it makes me feel like actually wanting to read the book, if that makes sense. I would just like to see little borders around the chapters and things like that, and just, yeah, just making a bit more of an effort. And I kind of get why, you know, publishers don't tend to do that with those type of books, because, well, it costs them more money because they'd have to get an illustrator, or they'd have to do the print, I guess. What would it be? The printer, the print company? I guess it would cost more because it's more intricate. I don't know. Maybe there is a genuine reason why it can't be done. I don't know, for certain books, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just want to see more of an effort. I wish sort of publishers or authors would listen to their readers more. And that trend at the moment, I'm trying to find a book with it now. Okay, I can't find one, but I think you know what I mean. You know when there's a book and there's a trend at the moment where they have like the half cover? I really hate that, and I know no one likes that. And the sticker thing, and putting stickers on books, or unremovable stickers, like, it's really annoying. And I just think, again, I think authors or publishers should be listening to actually what we want. There was a time where, and I think it was more around the 2010s era, and maybe actually when I'm thinking now, it's probably due to the fact that I read more YA back then, so that's probably why in children's books. But there was just more of an effort, and I just feel like with a lot of books now, there just isn't. I know some people wouldn't probably like that, but I would. I'm not expecting, like, you know, the greatest drawings of all time. I'm not expecting artist sketches or anything. Just something really nice. I just think that's cute. I think, you know, I'd love to see that more. It would actually, like I said, it would make me want to buy the book more. I would like to read more books that focus on non-platonic relationships. So this could be friendships, family members, a combination of those, or maybe like neighbours, or I don't know, work colleagues or stuff. Now, I know they are in books, of course they are, but I just find that they're never really the centre. There is, when I say family, I suppose I have read a lot of books where that is the theme, so to say, like it is a book on family members, and maybe there's a bit of romance in, and she meets someone or they meet someone or whatever. So I have read books like that. I just want more of that. I just feel like, obviously, you know, romance is a big genre, and I've got no problems with that. I read romance myself. I wish there were more books that focused on friendships, and healthy friendships, maybe not so healthy friendships, family members, but not necessarily like the nuclear family, so, you know, mum, dad, brother, sister, whatever. You know, I maybe you could focus more on like a relationship with the aunt, or the relationship with the grandparents or something. You know, it's just something where I just don't see that a lot, and if it is, it's very much a side plot, subplot, whatever you call it. It's like a side. I want more. I want more of that. And I actually noticed that I prefer more type of those books. I'm kind of going towards that now, because I think I've just read so many romance. I've read so many books that just focus on the, you know, the, what do you call it, the nuclear family, you know what I mean, like, you know, mum, dad, or siblings, and it just gets a bit boring. And I like books more when it focuses on, I don't know, like relationships with neighbours, or relationships with your community, or your work colleagues, you know, like I mentioned all before. Like, I think they're much more interesting sometimes than just reading about lovers or family, like immediate family members, or a combination of those. I want to see more books focused on that, especially more friendship. Books just don't really tend to focus on friendships all that much. Again, they're very much a side plot. They're not the main focus, and I like reading books about that. I have read one or two like that, and I really loved them, and I think there just needs to be more. I would love to see that more in books. I love reading about friendships, probably because I don't have any friends. Any kind of did I say non-platonic? I meant platonic. I think I said non-platonic before. I can't remember. I'm so hot. I think I'm going a bit delirious. I want to see that. I want to see friends, okay? I want friends. I want to see friends. I want it in my books. I want to read about relationships with friends, and, you know, how that can progress over the years as you grow older, or maybe how it doesn't progress because you've become older. I don't know. Like, I love all that stuff, and I definitely love to read more of that. Sort of following on from that a little bit, I also would like to see more non-traditional type relationships represented in books. Again, they are out there, but the ones that I have read, it's very much like a side, what do you call it, like a subplot, I suppose, or like a side plot, or it's just kind of mentioned. So what do I mean by non-traditional? So like non-monogamous. I said that, non-monogamous type relationships, so maybe polyamorous, that kind of thing. I just think it's more interesting to read about. Like, yes, we know about monogamy, it's very much highly valued in our society, it's very much encouraged, so, you know, I don't really need to read so much about that anymore. I get a bit bored of it, to be honest. So I would like to see that more represented. I also would like to see more like asexual relationships, obviously LGBT, basically anything that isn't just the traditional boy girl or even boy girl. Like, I just want to see something a bit out of that, because, you know, I know they're not as like mainstream, and, you know, as a society we don't normally see that as much, but it would be more interesting. And maybe like people living with, you know, not just their parents or not just their I don't know, their significant other, like somebody who lives with maybe their grandparents, or someone who lives with a family member, or friends, maybe all friends live together, or I don't know, just something other than what we always see. And I just think something like that would be really good. But yeah, talking about the non-traditional type romances, that's definitely one I want to see more of. I just think it's definitely more interesting. I'm all about opening myself up to different people's experiences and perspectives, and I think that would be really interesting to read about. Now, following on from that, I'd also like to see more in terms of older main characters. So, you know, I've read a lot of books now, and I'm going to be, at the time of filming this, I'm going to be 30 next year. And I'm kind of getting to that age now where I'm rereading the Twilight series at the moment, and obviously Bella's 17, one of the main characters is 17 in it, right? And I mentioned Twilight again, fuck's sake. I used to do a bingo count how many times I say the Twilight series. A lot of these YA novels, obviously, they tend to be like in their early or sometimes mid-20s, but you never really get main characters who are like beyond 30. I've noticed it's quite unheard of, especially more over the age of about 40, but I've noticed definitely 30 and older is just, it's almost quite rare. Like I said, they do exist, these characters, but they're not the main characters, and they're again very much like a minor character. So I'd like to see more of that. I want to see older people, like people in their 70s, and I know people probably think, well, society thinks, well, there's not much to say about them because they're retired, but they're so much more interesting. I've noticed that I tend to like books now that are older. I want older characters. We have so many books out there that are filled with kids and teenagers and people in their 20s, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's great, but I just like to see more. I would like to see more older people represented, especially in society now as we're having a more aged population. I think it makes sense really to read about characters that are older, that are retired, and I'm talking elderly, I'm also talking middle-aged, and you know, all these things, because you know, we're all going to go through it, or maybe you have gone through it, I don't know, you know, we're all going to get there one day. I'm fed up now of reading about people who have gone through college or uni or high school or secondary school, whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm kind of done with that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I've been through that myself. I don't really want to read about it. I don't know, maybe it's something to do with me, because like I said, I'm coming into my 30s next year, so maybe it's a me thing, I'm not sure, but I just feel like I just want to see more of it. I want to see more old people in my books. I think it would be fun for authors to explore that.
Spill the tea, honey.
And following on from that, my last but not least one that I would love to see more of is definitely 100%, I would like to see, and actually when I really thought about this, I was like really sat there trying to think of books that I've read recently with this in it. I would just like to see more normal jobs represented in books, and hear me out, don't come for me, because just listen to what I'm about to say. What I mean by that, because I hate saying that word, but I don't know how else to say it. Working class jobs, I guess he would say here in the UK, you know, I want to see more of that. Again, they are there, but they're secondary, they're minor characters. I would like to see more books about people who just work in offices, or secretaries, or receptionists, or I mean, I don't know if they're all necessarily working class jobs, or even builders, or, you know, just garbage disposal people, bin men as we call them here in the UK, or whatever, you know, that kind of, I want to just see more of them. I want their stories. I want that in fiction or non-fiction even. I do read quite a bit of thriller, and it's nearly always, not always, but nearly always, their jobs are doctor, journalist is a big one, detective, they work in the police, they're a spy, they're a teacher, and they're great, they're valid jobs, they're great, whatever, but it's like, people have quite mundane jobs, most of us do, and I just think there's nothing wrong with that, again, but I just think, you know, can we just have that? Or even, you know, people that work in retail or hospitality, you know, all that kind of thing. And I'm not saying, I've got to be careful here, because I'm not trying to be offensive, please don't take offence. You know, a job is a job at the end of the day. I'm very much a believer in that. If you pay tax, you have a job, you are part of society, and you're very valid. It doesn't matter what you do, I don't care. You know, you are part of the society, you're paying tax, you're therefore part. I'm just saying, like, I just want to see more normal, I hate saying that word, but you know what I mean, normal type jobs represented, you know. I'm so sick reading about journalists, no offence if you're a journalist, but oh my god, I'm like so sick of it. I swear I know more about the journalism job than I ever do. It's always a doctor or a nurse. Nurse is a big one at the moment. I'm reading a lot about nurses, and you know, it's fine, they are, you know, as we know, they're very valid jobs, very important jobs, but it just, the ones that maybe society wouldn't deem as important, you know, I hate to say that because I don't believe in that, but I'm just saying, if you know what I mean, if we're looking at it through a capitalistic lens, and I just want to see those jobs represented more. Maybe it's because myself, I have an office job, okay, that is my job, I work full-time in an office, and maybe that's why I want to see more of that represented. Because the one I did read quite recently, I think this is why I loved it so much, was Sweet Pea by CJ Scouse. I know I've gone on and on and on about that before, but the main character, Rhiannon Lewis, that is her job. She works in office. I think eventually she does actually become a journalist, I think, if I remember correctly, but she does start off as like quite low down the ranking, as just like an office admin. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, and I just like to see that represented. I think it's quite important because, like I said, the vast majority of us, that is our jobs, you know. We're not all actors or rock stars or, you know, celebrities or politicians, you know. We're cleaners, we're office workers, we're receptionists, you know. There's a whole obviously range of jobs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know how many times I've said that. There's nothing wrong with it. I'd love to see that more represented. And like I said, with the main character Rhiannon Lewis, it was good to explore that because it was good to get, it's more relatable, isn't it? Like, if you feel like you could put yourself in that story, you know what that's like. I kind of get why an author may not do that because, you know, let's be honest, are they the most interesting jobs sometimes? No, probably not, if we're being completely honest. But, you know, it doesn't mean that it can't be interesting. And actually, I do find with a lot of these type of kind of jobs, if you do have a character that has like a mundane job, so say for example what I do, office administrator, you know, it's not the most exciting job in the world, let's be honest there, but you know, maybe it gives a good way because then the author can focus more on the story, and that's kind of like an ad job. Whereas I find a lot of the times with these kind of books, and especially in thrillers, if their job is a journalist or a nurse, that becomes the story. Do you see what I mean? Whereas like I feel like if they're just the cleaner, and I hate saying it like that, but you know what I mean, then it's like, oh, that's their job, but actually this is the story. And sometimes you can incorporate that a little bit because obviously, you know, our working lives, sometimes whether we like it or not, they do coincide with our personal lives, and so I do get that. But I think you can play around more when they have a job that's maybe not deemed as important, if you know what I mean. You know, I'm not saying your job isn't important, I'm just saying in terms of the capitalistic lens, you know, they like to think that that's like the bottom of the barrel, which it's not, and we all know that. And you know, if you're any of the jobs I mentioned, you're very valid. I just think you can do great things with that. And I have, like I said, when I read that one, I was like, great, I love that. And again, I actually prefer to read now books where they do just have books about cleaners and housemaids, and although that's getting quite popular at the moment, isn't it, cleaners and things, but yeah, that kind of thing. I'm just so fed up of reading about journalists. I just really hate journalists. I don't hate journalists, but you know what I mean. I think it's just me. I think I'm done with journalism. I've read so many books where they're the journalists, and I have to be like, oh no. Do try and stay away. I know I don't like reading anything if they're like police or detectives. That's a no for me. I don't do anything with that. I just don't like anything to do with the police. So enough said about that. To sum up, the people want pretty book covers, more representation, not just boy girl romance or just two people. What's that? We want different types of relationships represented. We don't just want the nuclear family. We the people, if you're an author or publisher, listen to us. Speaking for the book community, like, yeah, okay, obviously, you know, this is just my opinion. I'm only joking, but yeah, that's what I'd like to see. I think it would just make my reading experience a lot better. Now, I do have other stuff that I would like to see, but I might do a part 2 to this, otherwise I could go on and I could go on and I could go on. If you would like to listen to more that I have, then let me know down below, and also let me know yours. I'd be curious to know yours. Maybe I'll do a reaction video to that, I don't know yet, but let me know what you think. Don't be shy, I don't bite. I don't. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope, as always, that you have a really, really good day. Thank you.